Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today I want to talk with you about whether your team is multitasking in order to survive your video conference meetings. Now, that might seem a weird way of framing it. Are they multitasking to survive video conference meetings? I mean, isn't it their fault they're multitasking? Well, let's talk about what's actually going on and talk about some misconceptions around multitasking in video conference meetings. Now, managers, I've often seen them when I do focus groups in my clients who I'm helping figure out their flexible work models, that they blame staff for multitasking during video conference meetings. But this frustration is really misdirected. When I do focus groups with staff, what I see is that it's not just about employee behavior and not even primarily about employee behavior. It's about what managers do and how they structure the meetings. So that's why we really need to redefine the problem, to focus on how meetings are actually managed. Managers, what they tend to assume is that multitasking during meetings comes from people being distracted. Maybe they're texting, maybe they're online shopping, maybe they're checking their personal emails. But we have extensive evidence, for example, from the research of Nick Bloom at Stanford University, that only 5%, a really small number, 1 out of 20 of employees actually engage in personal activities during meetings. The reality is that the large majority who engage in multitasking do so for work-related reasons. So that other work tasks are distracting them. For example, research using Microsoft Teams data shows that 30% of multitasking is directly work-related, like responding to emails, doing messages on Microsoft Teams, Slack, and so on, editing documents. And so we also see that multitasking is most common during long, large, recurring, or morning meetings with people having their cameras off. So multitasking is in essence a productivity strategy for overwhelmed, tired, put upon employees. And it can be a productivity tool for them. So employees essentially are staying productive during parts of the meetings that they perceive as relevant to them. It's a survival tactic for otherwise time that would be wasted when they can be doing their primary jobs. Employees should not be in meetings that they perceive as not as essential. And this is not only limited to remote work settings. For example, you have distractions occurring in in-person meetings with people using their phones or typing on their laptops and checking their work email instead of taking notes in the meetings, having side conversations. So returning to the office, which many managers want to do as a result of their perceptions around distractions during multitasking, it just won't solve these problems. The root issue is meeting structure, whether it's in-person or video conference meetings. So, human nature and distraction, that's what managers blame for multitasking, and just saying it's the way people are is not really getting at the root of the problem. There's a larger problem, so we need to get at the root of the problem, not just human nature. It's really tied to meeting design and communication breakdowns. I often see that. Leaders are responsible for this situation because they're responsible for the engagement of their employees. Managers are responsible for creating an environment that facilitates effective engagement with meeting structure. Significant multitasking shows a failure to engage the team. When employees should focus during meetings, leaders, they certainly should focus during meetings. Leaders are the ones who hold overall primary responsibility and influence over the meeting and how they frame the meeting and their tone, structure, and agenda, because that's what determines whether employees are paying attention. Now, broad agendas, non-spoken, not specific broad agendas, long durations, long meetings, and without breaks, and too many voices participating is what leads to distraction. Multitasking is a response to an environment that lacks a focus for employees. It's a sign that the meeting format is causing employees to be distracted, and they naturally focus their attention on what they are going to be doing that's most productive, which is at that moment not the meeting from their perspective. So the consequence of meeting overload is typically a symptom of deeper systematic issues within the organization. Meeting overload hampers focused and uninterrupted work, and disengagement from meetings goes beyond the meeting room. We see that high multitasking results, according to my focus groups with employees, from insufficient time outside of meetings to focus on their head down, uninterrupted work. And that's an opportunity for managers to introspect about how they structure their meetings and change them. So this is an opportunity for leaders to focus on improving meeting structure, not disciplining employees. The key question is this meeting really necessary? Is the agenda engaging for employees? And without change around these issues, multitasking will persist as a coping mechanism for too many meetings, distracting meetings without sufficient focus topics and without employees seeing a good purpose for them to engage with the meeting. Large meetings are especially bad. Large meetings involving over 20 people often cause the most multitasking challenges because that including so many people leads to long events with minimal engagement from each individual employee. Large meetings dilute individual ability to contribute and focus. The larger the meeting, the less individual participation, and the less individual participation, well, the less people will be paying attention. Another issue here is recurring meetings. Because they become routine, they lose effectiveness, and people engage less if they know they have the opportunity to engage in the future, and if it's just perceived as a meeting that's there for the purpose of being there rather than for the purpose of actually serving some important good goal. This redundancy is what encourages distraction and multitasking, and these frequently repeated meetings often waste time and they reduce productivity. That's a big problem. Another thing that managers don't think about sufficiently is how to get their outcomes met through asynchronous communication. Tools like emails, Microsoft Teams messages, and Slack offer a lot of flexibility. So you don't need to be simultaneously available for all sorts of things that you do. That enables responses to messages when people are most convenient for them to respond, which enhances people's ability to focus. So, you want to preserve deep work hours and respect individual productivity rhythms. So rethink the meetings for high impact. Reconsider the notion that meetings are always necessary for team communication. Again, asynchronous communication is an excellent tool. Many meetings dilute productivity. They function as time sinks essentially. So the key is fewer meetings, but more impactful meetings. Managers are the ones who have the power to change this pattern for better meeting outcomes. What you want to do is have a focused attendee list. Think about who really needs to be there and trim down the list. Don't try to be super inclusive. Leaner attendees lists with fewer attendees encourage more active participation by each attendee. So reducing attendees minimizes the room for multitasking for everyone. Then create an engaging meeting agenda. So you want to have a good meeting agenda where people are actually engaged with the meeting. You want to require active involvement from all attendees. No one should be present to just nod along to other people talking or fill a seat just for inclusiveness sake. This interactive agenda where each meeting participant is required to participate reduces the likelihood of a disengagement and multitasking. Now, going beyond meetings, if multitasking persists even after you do these changes, think about whether deeper team issues are at play. You might have poorly defined roles, or people are not comfortable in their roles and they don't feel comfortable participating effectively in meetings. Maybe there's a mismatch for culture or misaligned incentives, so people don't have the right incentives to participate effectively. Then employees, of course, may also be experiencing personal challenges that are affecting focus and productivity. For example, I've seen a lot of companies announcing RTOs where employees are forced to come to the office and they feel resentful about it, and then they are disengaged in meetings, whether in the office or by video conference. So persistent multitasking is a sign of these deeper issues needing attention. The long-term impact of meeting reforms. They are about building a more collaborative and motivated team. Multitasking can be a really diagnostic tool to reveal deeper issues. Ignoring these signs leads to more significant and less manageable problems. So leaders really need to create an ecosystem a broader culture where productivity and focus thrive organically through creating a structure and format for meetings, and a broader culture as a whole that engages employees effectively. So engagement is at the core of productive meetings. Effective meetings command attention and foster productivity. Multitasking helps reveal flaws in management style and communication strategy. So restructure meetings that can bring, when you restructure them, they can bring focus and more engagement, which is what leaders desire, and honestly, it's what employees desire as well. So take the goal of aligning meeting structure with team productivity needs. All right, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps other people discover the show, and it helps us improve the show.